Chapter 11, Outwitting the Devil, Learning from Adversity. It's not all what you think. Yo, what's up everybody? How you doing? I want to thank all my patrons for being here because this video is strictly just on my Patreon account. And I thank you guys as always for being patrons, for taking the mental energy and effort, the love that you give. I really, really appreciate that. If I ever don't tell you that, I'm telling you now. If you ever think that I'm not appreciative, come back and watch this video, this first part, and know that I am deeply, deeply appreciative of it. So, we are going to get into chapter 11, which is learning from adversity. Remember, there are 7 things in these last couple of chapters that he talks about that helps you to reset your mind to go over to attain spiritual, mental, and physical freedom. So they are definiteness of purpose, mastery over self, learning from adversity, which is what we're about to do. All in one chapter, he talks about controlling environmental influence, time, harmony, and caution. So in this chapter, we're talking about learning from adversity. Now, I can summarize this very easily, but of course, we got to go through the entire thing in more detail. And there's one part that I'm going to harp on because this adversity affects us in so many different ways, and is really the biggest thing that challenges, one of the biggest things that challenges our lives and get us into a hypnotic rhythm of failure that causes us to lose out on so much because we're trying to play to this, trying to placate to it. So just hold on till we get to that point. I'll definitely let you know when we're there. So learning from adversity. I mean, he starts out in the very beginning. Is failure a benefit to man? Yes, indeed. But few people know that every adversity brings with it the seed. Be mindful of that, the seed of the equivalent advantage. Still fewer people know the difference between temporary defeat and failure. If people understood this, the devil says that it would deprive him of his strongest weapon against people. Why? Because most people, they will quit right at the brink of being able to be successful. Everybody, I don't know if you know the old story, and I might do that as a story time with an alchemist on YouTube, of how, you know, the guy who was only 3 feet away from gold, digging and digging and digging, got 3 feet away and quit. Right? You may be 3 feet away from your goal. You may be, he says that success usually is but one short step beyond the point where one quits fighting. Now, I want you to understand that he says the seed of an equivalent advantage. It does not mean that if you fail, that the next thing is going to bloom into the flower. He talks about that later in this chapter, that it automatically blooms into the flower. No, but the seed, the opportunity is presented there that will allow you to move forward and succeed. Move forward and have whatever level of failure you had, a level of success. If you remember when we was going through the Hermetics, the law of rhythm, for the swing to the left is equal to the swing to the right. So the level of defeat, of temporary defeat, is equal to the level of success that you can have. So if you've been, like I've at one point have been broke and homeless, so that means that my level of swing to the left of broke and homeless is living in palatial whatever, you know, that's great and grand for me, and you know, living the life that I truly deserve, not having multiple homes, all kind of homes, locations that I can easily travel to, you know. So it's the swing to the right. And it's not all just in that. I felt the depths of trust, of relationships that has been so damaging and destructive in my life, that I know that my swing to the right can be the most beautiful love ever experienced by me. So, and of course she would have the same experience. But only the seed is there. Only the seed. And we're going to talk about what you do with that seed as we go through this. Because you can't quit. Most people quit, or they get stuck into repeating the same habits and practices that keeps them into temporary forms of defeat. He asks that all one may learn. He said, nope, that's the least of it. And that's where most people get stuck. They get stuck with, my defeats are only temporary. People who are in church, they get that, oh, I'm only temporarily defeated. But they don't understand how to not stay stuck in that. But there are deeper levels that we have to understand in order to move forward. that it can be a blessing in disguise, that it can break the grip of hypnotic rhythm and free one's mind and give you a fresh start. Because why? What did you learn from defeat? If you actually learn from it, you learn that it is just one step. It is one way of not succeeding, but that you have to change and do something different. You have to change. Napoleon Hill says that even nature's law of hypnotic rhythm can be and often is annulled by nature itself. And he's saying no, hypnotic rhythm is never annulled. Hypnotic rhythm works, but what it does is it allows you to think freely. It allows you to be able to do things differently, so you can use hypnotic rhythm to your benefit. The devil says that the individual gives up his freedom by abuse of this law. If a man jumps from a tree and was killed by the sudden impact of his body with the earth through the law of gravity, you wouldn't say nature murdered him, would you? You would say the man neglected to relate himself properly to the law of gravity. So for whatever failure that you have been experiencing in your life, whatever adversity you are challenged by, the proper way for you to succeed is by relating yourself properly to it, by recognizing that something as simple as getting a speeding ticket where you know that there is a speed trap. If you know the speed trap is there, you've been caught in that speed trap before, then why do you speed every time you go through that same area? Slow down. Do it differently. Utilize the experience to grow. Don't think that things are supposed to change just because you're going to think, I'm not going to get a ticket, I'm not going to get a ticket, I'm not going to get a ticket, I'm not going to get a ticket. But you're speeding through the same area. You're going to get a ticket. It doesn't work that way. The law of nature is not going to change because of you. You just had a thought about it. But you have to change your methodology, change how you relate to it. And that's a huge part of understanding how failure is your benefit. Failure is your friend. That temporary is just temporary defeat because it shows you how not to do something. He said, Napoleon Hill asks, he said, so the law of hypnotic rhythm is capable of both negative and positive. That you can have that there is slavery through the loss of your privilege and freedom of thought, but then there is freedom through the free use of your freedom of thought. And the devil says, now you have it right. But then Napoleon Hill says, one does not intentionally try to fail. No one encouraged temporary defeat. And that's true. Because failure is a man-made circumstances. And it only becomes failure when a man accepts it as failure. But so that means that failure is a state of mind. It's something that each individual can control. The law only gives permanence to the dominant thought. We say that you are what you think, and that is absolutely true. You are exactly what you think. Whatever your dominating thought is what you are in your life. So if your dominating thought is always on the negative side, always on the failure side, then that's exactly what you will be and experience in life. So the choice is to change the thoughts so that the habits can change as well. The actions then change. This is not just thought exercise. This is life exercise. So he asks, what part does failure play? And he goes on, failure brings the climax of bringing these things out of you, getting you to understand it, getting you to know how to take a different path, to give you a fresh start. Thomas Edison tried 1,005 ways of making a light bulb, but it was the next try. But the try was different than the previous try. The only thing I've seen that acts idiot, that doesn't fit that bill, is in the IT world. Sometimes in the IT world you can do the same thing over and over again and you will get a different result. Like when you're installing a new server platform. There's only one way to install it, but sometimes it doesn't work. So you uninstall it and reinstall it the exact same way, and then all of a sudden it works. I don't know. But even within that, something different happened within the installation. What I did may have been different, but everything else worked differently. Somewhere there's a change, and it allowed it to work. So we can't keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. We know that's insanity, as coined by Albert Einstein. So he says that failure brings that to you, that you get to notice when something is wrong, when you get to hit those dead-end paths and then create a new pathway, a new way of doing things. And that's what the opportunity brings to you. Those who have strong willpower will utilize this to move forward. Those of weak willpower will use this to fail, to cause themselves to to sit in that failure and call themselves a failure and allow that to become their dominating thought. So until you change that, it remains to be your dominating thought. So you have to look at it and find what can I learn from it, and then actually make the change. You have to actually make the change. All right? Nature shows you this in many examples. Nature used illness to break the physical rhythm of the body when the cells and the organs become improperly related. She uses economic depressions to break the rhythm of the mass when great numbers of people become improperly related through business, social, and political activities. Nature uses this also when people relate negative things to themselves and to their own minds. So we see this naturally. It's all about relationship. How you relate the world to yourself will determine whether or not you use failure and adversity to your advantage. Everyone will experience adversity. The richest person in the world experiences adversity. The poorest person experiences adversity. The famous person, adversity. The person who's the forgotten people, they experience adversity. And everyone in the middle. Everyone will experience some level of adversity. But how you relate those adversities to yourself and what changes you make will make all the difference in the world. Now he gets very repetitive in this mindset, trying to get you to understand it. He goes into, there's one part that I'm going to break into a single video as well. He talks about marriage and relationship. This is the part that I need you to pay close attention to. This is the part that I need you to have focus on. The reason why is because this right here has been the downfall of many people. Throughout history, as I study powerful people, successful people, one of the things I've recognized is that when this aspect is in tune, they have great lives. They succeed in whatever their plans are. And that is marriage. And even in marriage, and the same thing affects you business-wise, but in marriage. Let's talk about this. And I'm going to read it, so get over it. He says, marriages succeed or fail entirely because of the manner in which the participants relate themselves to one another. Proper relationships in marriage begins with the proper motives for the marriage. Most marriages do not bring happiness because the contracting parties neither understand nor attempts to understand the law of hypnotic rhythm, through the operation of which every word they speak, every act in which they engage, and every motive by which they are inspired to deal with each other is picked up and woven into the weave that entangles them in controversial misery, or gives them the wings of freedom, through which they soar above all forms of unhappiness. I want you to think about that. Really just let that soak in. Really let that soak in. Most marriages do not bring happiness because the contracting party neither understands nor attempts to understand the law of hypnotic rhythm through the operation of every word they speak and every act that they engage and every motive to which they are inspired to deal with each other, and that creates their marriage. One of the things that plagues me so deeply when I'm in a relationship with anybody, whether friend or foe, whether it is romantic or business, is that for me, I recognize every word, every action, every aspect has meaning to it. So many people dismiss what every action word has. They dismiss how it affects the marriage. They dismiss how it affects the children. One of the things that people in my family, and I'm gonna use my family, they couldn't stand is that they thought I was overprotective. But yet, no, I was very conscious of the fact that every word spoken in front of my children, every action my children see, has an effect on them. And especially every word and action that happens repeatedly, everything they see that happens repeatedly has an effect on them. Disney and Pixar movies that other people will allow their children to watch, I wouldn't allow my children to watch those movies, because I know children will watch them over and over and over and over and over again. And those subtle sexual innuendos, those subtle violent tendencies or personalities that were involved in these things, I know that they would have picked up on those. Same thing happens to adults in your marriage. Many of you are hurting over previous relationships, but you haven't changed your mode of operation. You haven't changed your motives of marriage. You haven't changed the things about you that contributed to the failure of the marriage or the relationship. You still maintain that I want you to love me unconditionally. I want you to love me as I am. Well, as you are did not work with the previous person or the person before that. And if it has shown a system of the same thing over and over again, then maybe the part of you that needs to change is that you need to change that part. Whatever it is, that's the part of you that needs to change. And then maybe, and not a maybe, then at that point you will attract somebody of a more harmonious mind. That is why marriages are so unhappy, because the minds are not harmonious. The minds are not together. Those who are Christian will recognize that their book says that when 2 or 3 gather together, and I know it says in my name and I am there, but there's other part where it says when 2 or 3 come together of like mind and have no doubt, that they will tell the mountain to move and the mountain will move. But they have to come in agreement of like mind, of harmonious mind. So when there is no harmonious mind, the marriage will not be happy. It may be complacent. It may be comfortable. It may be something you can deal with, but it's not happiness. It is unhappiness abound. I've seen many of these relationships. The beauty of what I do here is I get to see that on a daily basis. I get to see couples who are comfortable but not harmoniously happy. I get to see that quite often. And that part, if you do not recognize that part, then you need to, you will forever be stuck in poor relationships. And the thing about it, he says that hypnotic rhythm picks up on the dominating motives, aims, purpose, and feelings of the contacting minds and weaves them to some degree of faith or fear, love or hatred. And it's going to make that dominant in every personal relationship you have. So every deed, every thought must be monitored, must come into harmony. Otherwise, it will not work. It will not work in itself. And he says that the only way that you can make the relationship happy, have a happy marriage, and it's a lot that he says about it. The only way you can make the marriage happy, and in the shortest way of being able to say it, is you either have to change so that both of you are harmonious together. Change your mindset, change your action, change your habits so that the two of you are joined together, or change the persons in the agreement. Change the persons in the relationship. If the minds won't harmonize, then you have to remove yourself or the other person from the relationship. He says that when human relationships are in that way, that they will yield. When they're harmonious, they will yield the highest forms of riches in material, mental, and spiritual estates. Without understanding this, you will never have a happy relationship. Plain and simple. Without that, you'll have fine relationships. You'll have decent relationships. You'll have good relationships, but you will never have beautiful, amazing relationship until that harmony comes into play. And he says, what are proper relationships and what are improper relationships? Right? He asked the question. And he says that the answer is that a proper relationship is one that brings and allows connections, allows the connected with it or affected by it some form of benefit. It's kind of like when you're doing a sale. A good sale is when both parties win. Both sides win. That's a good sale. A great relationship is when both people are benefiting to the utmost from the relationship. Whether it's a friendship, romantic relationship, parent-child, no matter what it is, both people should be benefiting from the relationship. Therefore, an improper relationship will be any relationship between people which damages anyone or brings any form of misery or unhappiness to any of the individuals. One person may be happy, the other one may not be. Any individual. Therefore, it is an improper relationship if even one person is not experiencing a benefit from the relationship. If he's kicking your butt, it's not a proper relationship. If she's always being mean and bossy to you and causing you stress, it's not a proper relationship. You must find the proper relationship. How can an improper relationship be corrected? I said this before. By change of the mind of the person causing the improper relationship, or by changing the persons in the relationship. Some minds harmonize naturally while others just as naturally clash. Successful human relationships to endure as such must be formed of minds that naturally harmonize, quite aside from the question of having common interests as means of bringing them into harmony. So he says that they need to naturally harmonize. Some people, I would agree to that to a certain degree. In another degree, I believe that if a person chooses that they want to change how they are, if they see a person and they say, I would love to emulate that person, and they develop and they have enough common interest to harmonize to a degree to engage in a relationship, then you can learn from that person. But you have to be open to learning, open to changing. Coming in and it's a wish, a hope, a thought of how I think I can easily do this. No, you have to be willing to put in the work. And many are not. I've been in that situation where someone wanted to, they saw things in me that they wanted to be like. They thought that they could, but they could not. They couldn't make those changes. So the relationship couldn't last. Even in friendships, even in mentorships. When the person is just unwilling and unyielding, unbending. I have people on my financial alchemy who pay, but yet they do nothing. They don't make their appointments for coaching. They do not turn in what is necessary for them to turn in to move forward. So we are not in harmony. And I don't send them invoices anymore because I will not take from people like that. Because at the end, that is detrimental to me. But we have to be in harmony. Without that, it doesn't work. Even in business, you need to harmonize with one another. Successful businesses are that way because people know how to put the right people together so that they can harmonize and build the business. Many people are just throwing folks into a job and trying to manage them, or they make people into managers who don't know how to harmonize the team. And if you don't know how to harmonize the team, you're not going to be successful as a manager. You have high turnover. Very high turnover. So they get back to talking just about adversity. But he gets into a deeper level of it. Well, you have to go in and discover self. Discover yourself. Remember, self-mastery was the first, was the second key, self-mastery. But it allows you to go in and discover that part of yourself that he called the spiritual aspect of it, that you get away from the material parts of things that you do, this dimensional plane we're on now, but you get into the actual deeper consciousness of yourself. He goes into an explanation of determining and showing you what is consciousness and what is subconsciousness, and how the subconscious plays a major role in who you are and how you are affected by a relationship. But relating your conscious and subconscious together is vital in order for you to be able to change the hypnotic rhythm of your life. He said that many human beings discover, because this is part of the spiritual forces, many discover their other selves, the force which operates through the power of thought, only after some catastrophe deprives them of the full and free use of their physical bodies. When a man can no longer use his hands and his feet, he usually begins to use his brain. Thus, he puts himself in the way of discovering the power of his own mind. Your mind is way more powerful than you give it credit for. We say we throw things into the atmosphere, but we're not really doing it. We're using our conscious brain to do that. The true key is being able to harmonize the conscious and the subconscious and be able to then manifest things on higher planes, as above, so below. The way we train our subconscious brain is to relate it to universal law, to relate it to as above, so below, cause and effect, the law of rhythm, law of polarity, recognizing that everything exists on a pole. And when you know if you understand the pole, then you can understand the vibration. Then you can understand how to put the right thought in there. But you first must understand the pole so that you can take the right actions and have the right thoughts. Otherwise, it doesn't work. That way you get the right results. You get the results you're seeking after. And when things start to swing a little bit to the left, you know how to polarize it back to the right. But we got to get our subconscious mind in there, because we will make decisions and say things and do things without even thought, because our subconscious brain is already wired to look, feel, and do things a certain way. And controlling those emotions is how we get there. Is part of how we get there. So creating new habits is the only way we get out of that mentality of failure. We have to be able to create new habits, and that will destroy long habits of established habits of drifting as we create new habits. Kind of like when a person goes through so much pain in relationships, then they just pack up and move to a whole new city. I know people who have done that. When they got there, they reinvented themselves, and that reinvention created new habits for them, and their entire life changed. You may not have to do all of that, because you know people's eyes are looking at you. If you try to change in your current location, you may not have to do all that. You can do that wherever you currently are. But we must we must make sure that we have an understanding of this in order to make our lives better, in order to change from an adversity, in order to remove ourselves from situations that creates anxiety, that creates stress, that destroys us. We have to be able to do this. When we're not, we get stuck into a habit of drifting that causes us more pain and suffering, that causes us to continue to repeat life as it is, that causes us to never hit the goal, so that we can then form new goals and habits. This is what the adversity does for you, is that it helps you to understand universal law, understand your mind, understand your emotions, your feelings. When we come into an understanding of these things and the power of them, then we can grow. Then we can break free from the hypnotic rhythm of the negative portions of our brain. We can then outwit the devil. So I appreciate you guys for being here. Thank you very, 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 very much. Please go back and read this chapter for yourself. This is chapter 11. This is adversity. Using adversity. That's not the name of the chapter exactly. Learning from adversity. So I look forward to it, and I appreciate you guys, everybody on Patreon. This video is just for you, my Patrons. So remember, you got to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable.